Good evening. These are the stories we've been following up for you.
Tonight, all eyes are on the police as man who brutally attacked his wife continues to roam free. His wife Winifred Mwende is seeking justice after that vicious assault.
Also tonight, the tales of rogue taxify drivers continue to emerge.
He started now hitting me on my side, the side of my belly. I even have photos that show the bruises. I have the medical reports and everything.
Another victim claims taxify driver assaulted her while she was pregnant.
And NTV obtains exclusive footage of Kenyans enslaved in Qatar. More than 80 Kenyans abused and living in a deplorable state in Qatar plead to return to the country.
Plus, the elusive contraband sugar report. Report on contraband sugar fails to name the actual importers of the poisoned sweetener, instead blaming the saga on 3 cabinet secretaries.
NTV Tonight with Dennis Okari and Olive Burrows.
Thank you for joining us on NTV Tonight. We are glad you're watching. Our sign language interpreter tonight is David Agondoa.
Also, you can join us live on our social media pages, that is at NTV Kenya on Twitter and Facebook, ntv.co.ke/live on our website, and on NTV Kenya YouTube channel. I repeat that again, you can join us now live at NTV Kenya on Twitter and Facebook, ntv.co.ke/live on our website, and on NTV Kenya YouTube channel.
Winifred Mwende, the woman who was assaulted by her husband Daudi Nzomo, and the ordeal recorded on camera, wants the law to take its course.
Mwende, who is currently recuperating at the Machakos Level 5 hospital, was lucky to get through the ordeal without a skull fracture. NTV's Sharon Baranga reports.
Relatives, friends and well-wishers have been streaming in at Machakos Level 5 hospital to condole with Winifred Mwende, a woman who was assaulted by her husband on Monday this week. Today Mwende is better off. She can talk.
Akanishika kwa chini, kwa shingo, akanifinya, akanipuruta tu kwa chini, akanikanyanga, kuniuliza tena kwa nini unanichapa. Akaniambia amepigiwa simu na watu, akaambiwa ninachunga ng'ombe na wanaume.
We managed to get the city head scan reports which showed that luckily enough, or fortunate enough, she did not sustain any skull fracture, and she did not also sustain any intracerebral trauma.
Mwende's sister says the marriage has had a considerable amount of violence since 2013, when Zomo married a second wife and started accusing Mwende of having a child with another man.
Nikauliza alikuwa anataka kumuua ama ni nini ilikuwa inatakikana. Sasa hata sina usamaha kusema ile ukweli. Alikuwa anamtendea kama nini, anataka kumuua. Nimechoka na huyu jamaa. Sasa akifona akirudi huko, mimi nitaenda kumpepa hata rudi tena.
The incident took place at Kitonyini, Kiaka location in Makueni County.
Ni jambo ambalo ni la aibu mwanamume kumtandika mwanamke, na ni mwanamke yule ambaye anampatia mapenzi. Alafu leo amegeuka kuwa mbaya kiasi hicho. Tunafaa kuangalia hata jinsi Mungu alituumba. Aliumba mwanamume na ngozi ngumu, mwanamke na ngozi nyororo. Kiasi ya kwamba si wa kupigwa, ni wa kushikwa. Unaponioa, mimi sikuja kutafuta headmaster, nimekuja kutafuta mpenzi, na nimekuja kutafuta bwana. Sasa wewe unakuwa askari rungu kwangu.
Nzomo is yet to be arrested, a day after Makueni County Police Boss said they had tracked him at Kitonyoni Market. Mwende was married in 2005 at the age of 16. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
From that unfortunate incident and story by Sharon Baranga to politics now. The National Assembly is urging the government to set aside funds to facilitate construction of post-trauma centers in every constituency for sexual and gender-based violence victims.
Members of Parliament called for a resolution on ensuring such motions are passed and legislative policies implemented. The centers are intended to temporarily shelter survivors to provide them healing and safety.
The recent case of violence against a woman in Makueni County became a discussion in the House, with statistics showing that in this county alone, about 150 cases of sexual and gender-based violence have already been reported.
Yesterday in my county, and I come from Makueni County, of course representing the people of Kibwesi's constituency, we had a clip that went viral, Mr. Speaker, over one Miss Nzomo who was beating the wife brutally, Mr. Speaker, including even telling the wife that is going to chop his throat or kill her, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I felt for the children of Mr. Nzomo and the wife. And so I must also pronounce myself that I will be bringing an amendment to propose a change to the GBV Act, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that even as we do motions, we also make laws in the House.
It doesn't matter what kind of or where you come from. Nobody is immune from this, and it does not matter how much money you have. All of us are exposed to this, and it's important that these trauma centers are created.
A businessman has today been sentenced to 20 years in prison after a Nairobi court found him guilty of murdering his girlfriend.
Erastus Odhiambo was found guilty of fatally shooting his wife Linda Wanjiku in Phase 5 Buruburu Estate, Nairobi County.
Justice Stella Mutuku condemned Odhiambo to 20 years in prison for the incident which occurred on the 11th of December 2014.
Odhiambo had visited Linda Irongo's on the fateful night and shot her thrice when the then 27-year-old lawyer refused to join him for a night out.
The court heard that Odhiambo had gone looking for Wanjiku and found her inside her car, preparing to drive out.
Witnesses said the accused dragged her out of the car and a quarrel ensued between the two, during which Odhiambo is reported to have assaulted Wanjiku before shooting her as two guards watched. It's quite unfortunate how we started off with these incidents. The week has been quite interesting, but the discussion in Parliament, I think, pushes it a little bit further, Olive.
Yes, it does. It's because it's not the one and only incident. There is a story about a lady in Kisii who had her left hand chopped by her estranged husband. Prior to that, there was a woman in Migori also who had her hands chopped off. And of course, before that, there was Mwende's story, which we covered extensively, who had both her hands chopped off in what was a lover's quarrel.
Interestingly, the views that we got since yesterday up until today, we've had so many interesting views from different people saying that these cases have been on the rise and something surely really needs to be done.
That is true.
Yeah, we're going to be joining Helen March later on. She'll be talking to some women about this same issue. This is the point of focus in our news bulletin today, so that will be coming up much later. So let's move on now. More than 80 Kenyans living in deplorable conditions in Qatar after the quest for better jobs failed, having called on the Kenyan government to help bring them home.
NTV has exclusively obtained footage of the Kenyan migrant workers in the Gulf state. Many face unspeakable abuse, torture and outright enslavement. And as NTV's Rose Wangoi reports, several families in Mombasa County also want the government to repatriate their loved ones back home after a company they worked for terminated their contracts.
The search for a better life in the Gulf has exposed Kenyans to inhumane conditions at the hands of would-be benefactors. NTV has obtained footage of Kenyans living in deplorable conditions in Qatar. The group of 82, including ladies, traveled to the Gulf searching for jobs that they can't get locally. The clips were sent to NTV newsroom by Kenyan migrants who do manual jobs like housekeeping and caretaker work. The distraught workers claim they're being mistreated by their employer. Some traveled to Qatar in 2015, while others have been working since 2013. Apart from their passports being confiscated and being overworked, the migrants also claim that their employer has been withholding their salaries. They also live in cramped and overcrowded rooms.
We have no food, we don't have anything. We get our money so that we can go home. This is not our country. We have our rights. We are the rights of human. Yes. We are labor.
And with the situation, several families in Mombasa County whose members are trapped in Qatar have also called on the Kenyan government to intervene and repatriate their loved ones back home after a company they worked for terminated their contracts. Ruth Obimbo claims her brother Douglas Jack, who left the country in 2013, has been unable to return back home for lack of transport.
Wako na mwaka mitatu saizi. Wamepata shida hapo, wanapigia simu wapate msaada wote, mahali pa kukaa hawana, kula imekuwa pia ni shida, mshahara wapewi.
Brother yangu mdogo wangu ambaye ndio yuko Qatar, sasa amemaliza miaka 2 na miezi 8. So far tangu alipoenda mwaka wa kwanza pesa alikuwa akituma vizuri. After that ndio ikawa sasa kuna shida. Anaweza kaa 2 months wanafanya kazi, pesa hawalipi mshahara.
The Council of Imams and Preachers of Kenya, led by Sheikh Mohammed Khalifa, condemned the incident and asked members of parliament to enact laws that will protect Kenyans working overseas. The government has already signed a bilateral agreement with Qatar and Saudi Arabia, which are the major markets for low-skilled migrant workers, but organizations say there still exist legal loopholes to be addressed.
Tunataka serikali ya Kenya kupitia Wizara ya Mambo ya Nchi za Nje kwa Waziri Monica Juma atumie ubalozi wa Kenya ulioko Qatar kuweza kuwasaidia na kuwanusuru hawa vijana wa Kenya 80.
Trace Kenya, a non-governmental organization that deals with counter-human trafficking, says since 2013 it has rescued over 691 persons from the Gulf countries, having undergone different forms of mistreatment. Rozongoi, NTV.
In light of the concerning incidents of violence against women, our very own Helen Aura sat with several women, three of them. One of them is a survivor of gender violence. The other is from FIDA, Kenya, and the other is a psychologist. So here's that focus group that she held.
The minute a man starts hitting a woman to that extent that we saw yesterday is the ultimate show of power over, show of control and intimidation that has gone on for weeks, for months and even years.
Domestic violence, you resort from a conflict that is pending, and one of the spouses in most cases is not able to engage in negotiation.
And what are some of the red flags that you saw, and why did you ignore them from the get-go?
It took me years of denial. It took me years of pretending that what I'm seeing as a red flag is nothing, you know. And there were so many telltale signs, you know, all around me that I think I failed to see. The sad thing is that it was the same me who was trying to protect his image. You know, when I go to work with a black eye, it's the same me who's trying to tell my colleagues that I fell off the stairs. You know, I fell off here, I hit my face on the wall and all that. But everyone could just see, you know, an injury of falling off the stairs.
What's the main reason behind men not going for counseling?
In our setting, especially the African cultural setting, men are meant to be the bosses. They are meant not to show that they have been beaten or they have been called names. I mean, they are supposed to show up with a lot of confidence and strength.
Are there institutions that women can go to for rehabilitation?
The government has not come up with rescue centers. There is none that I've heard of where a victim can go to be assisted, to get support, counseling, legal assistance. Most institutions that are rescue centers are run by private entities, NGOs, and other institutions, churches. Now, there is no mechanism to follow up on what actually happens in those institutions.
One other thing I'd want to say to parents like me, I'm a parent right now, having kids who are young men who can get married any minute now. The minute you're called upon by your child or someone to come in and mediate, please walk in there as neutral as you can.
And I think the government needs to come up with mechanisms of instituting rescue centers, especially at the county level, because it will be easier if a victim knows I can go maybe a few kilometers, I can get this rescue center. It will be easier for even the victims to come out and get help.
Well, more of that. Join us tomorrow on NTV Sasa. They will be debating on the same issues, and also you can follow the discussions online. Moving on now, a second victim of assault by a taxify driver has emerged seeking justice.
It brings into focus the vetting process of the drivers that provide taxi services to Taxify.
Gloria Mulwa was 38 weeks pregnant when she was attacked by Stephen Nzau, a taxify driver, for refusing to leave her change and trust that he would send it to her via M-Pesa.
NTV's Charity Mwangi reports that, as was the case with Wankio Nyainda incident, the taxi service provider appears to have treated the matter casually.
Wankio Nyainda's story on how she was attacked by a taxify driver on Sunday has sparked reaction from customers who have suffered a similar fate at the hand of the same service provider, Taxify. Gloria Mulwa rocks her baby, whose life was threatened when she was 38 weeks pregnant.
He started now hitting me on my side, the side of my belly. I even have photos that show the bruises. I have the medical reports and everything, because I did actually have to go see a doctor.
All this because she refused to leave her change with the driver Stephen Zhao, with the hope that he will send her the money via M-Pesa.
At that moment, you know, it's a very delicate time. You're about to deliver. You don't know if your baby has been injured. Actually, the night before, because I actually didn't get an ultrasound until the next day. That night, my baby didn't move.
The guards pictured here next to the suspect came to her aid and calmed the situation. Mulwa, unlike Nyainda, did not get the CCTV footage that could prove what happened. The police have been dodging her.
As a victim, why is it my job to go and investigate on behalf of the police? They should go and get the witnesses, because I've told them where the incident happened.
Taxify responded as they did with the Nyainda case, offering her 1,000 shillings worth of trips as compensation.
Taxify is a company that is putting people's lives at risk, because they have an SOS button for the driver's app. What about the rider?
Mulwa now wants more aggrieved parties to emerge to be able to file a lawsuit against Taxify as a way of holding them accountable for the safety of their clients against rogue drivers. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
The Kenya Institute of Mass Communication, one of the country's oldest training institutions for journalism in the country, is tonight on the spot over the failure to account for about 2.4 billion shillings.
A report by the Auditor General Edward Oko, tabled in Parliament, states that the institution had incurred the expenditures in the year ending June 2017, but could not explain how the funds were used.
NTV's Silas Apollo with the details in our continuing series on the state of corruption.
Another expose on questionable expenditure in a public institution. The Auditor General Edward Ouko believes that some of the expenditures at KIMC were not done in line with the law. He singles out unfinished construction project, which he says used up hundreds of millions of shillings, the grabbing of a land belonging to the institution by a private developer, as well as a failure to evaluate properties as a cause of the loss. An examination of accounts of the institution, says Ouko, revealed that while its documents show that the properties it owed were valued at 2.3 billion shillings, no valuation had been done. As a result, it was not possible to ascertain the figures provided by the institution and whether the value given was the true worth of its properties. But that is not all. The administration has also been put on the spot of an encroachment of the institution's land by a private developer. Oko says that the encroachment, if not revoked, could cut off the male and female hostel as well as the catering unit. This would affect the institution's operations, says Oko. And while the institution had paid about 115 million shillings to a contractor for the building of a modern kitchen and a dining hall, the works were below the agreed standards, with some incomplete. As such, says Ouko, it was impossible to ascertain whether the institution got value for its money.
While Ouko argues that the inconsistencies in the financial statements could be blamed for the loss of the billions of shillings, the institution has maintained that it had accounted for all the shillings sent to them.
In an extra response attached to the audit report, says that the transactions at the institution had been done above board with no losses. The institution's statement on its financial position singled out some of the properties it owned, whose total value was about 2.3 billion shillings. These include current and non-current assets. The non-current assets are the properties, plant and equipment, as well as the tangible assets. Silas Apollo, NTV.
Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich, former Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Willie Bett, and former Trade and Industrialization Cabinet Secretary Aidan Mohammed have been implicated in the sugar report tabled by the Joint Parliamentary Committee that investigated the sugar crisis in the country.
NTV's Seth Olale also reports that the Kenya Bureau of Standards report on the presence of mercury in sugar has differed with that of the government chemist under the Ministry of Health. However, the report does not give any names of those who imported the poisoned sugar.
The report recommends that the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, Henry Rotich, be investigated to ascertain the circumstances under which 4 Gazette notices were issued in 2017, leading to importation of excess sugar into the country and evasion of taxes worth billions of shillings. Former Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries, Willie Bett, is also to be investigated in order to establish the circumstances under which the CS recommended the waiver for 14 companies, which controversially had a Gazette notice revised, allowing them to import duty-free sugar past the initial duty-free window, leading to KRA losing over 10 billion shillings worth of tax revenue. Former Cabinet Secretary for Trade, Industry and Cooperatives Adan Mohammed, under whose docket KEBS was, has also been implicated in the report and recommended for investigation after KEBS failed to undertake adequate market surveillance to guarantee the safety and quality of sugar in the country. A KEBS report also conflicted with that of the Ministry of Health regarding the presence of mercury in samples collected in seized sugar and from market surveillance. According to KEBS, no traces of mercury was detected in both sugar seized from various godowns in the country and sugar currently being consumed in the retail chains. However, government chemists, which falls under the Ministry of Health, detected sugar contaminated with mercury from samples at Moi Air Base in Eastleigh, Nairobi County, and Webuye West, Bungoma County. KEBS has also established that samples collected from 45 counties, with the exception of Tana River and Mandera, was contaminated majorly in moisture, yeast, molds, total viable count and polarization. Efforts by the Joint Committee to establish from the multi-agency the owners of the contaminated sugar with mercury were futile. In addition, efforts by the Joint Committee to validate the findings of the government's chemist report that indicated presence of mercury through independent agencies, namely University of Nairobi and Kenya Plant and Health Inspectorate Services, went unanswered. After its preliminary report was rejected by members of the National Assembly, the Joint Parliamentary Committee hopes that its 62-page final report on the sugar crisis in the country will not only be adopted by the National Assembly but also implemented by the Implementation Committee. Seth Olale, NTV, Nairobi.
And from that story, we take a short break.
But on the other side of the break, Kennedy Muredi brings us a story of what trouble DP Ruto is causing in ODM. Welcome back. More pressure continues to mount on Tourism and Wildlife CS Najib Balala to step down following the botched translocation of rhinos to the Tsavo East National Park. The Kenya Veterinary Association and the Union of Veterinary Practitioners have called upon the CS to issue a written apology to the union and reinstate the officers who were suspended unconditionally. And discussing the matter in Senate, senators accused the CS of arrogance in dealing with the matter. NTV Zainab Ismail with more.
This excessive display of raw authority and power, Mr. Speaker, is what is destroying this country. And when Kenyans got angry with this minister, he says, go to hell. And then he starts thinking that Kenyans have got the brains the size of a pinhead and swings around and says, I didn't say go to hell, I say go to hell's gate.
Officers drawn from the Kenya Veterinary Association and the Union of Veterinary Practitioners on Wednesday marched to Parliament buildings to present a petition in defense of vet officers who were suspended by the Ministry of Tourism over the botched translocation of rhinos 1 month ago. They criticized CS Balala for unfairly blaming the doctors.
The CS must apologize to the union, to the members of the veterinary profession, unreservedly. But as he does that with one statement: resign.
What we are saying, we do not want any interference to our professionals as they execute their mandate.
On Tuesday, CS Balala told the National Assembly's Environment and Natural Resources Committee that former KWS Board Chair Dr. Richard Leakey was to blame for sabotaging the relocation to paint the organization and the ministry in bad light.
There was a clear interference of the board management, of the KWS management. There was intimidation of Board of Trustees. There was forceful intervention and personal intervention by Dr. Leakey in those boards and intimidated all the staff. I sympathize with the people who have gone home, Mr. Chair. I sympathize with them.
But Dr. Leakey has dismissed those claims, saying he's ready to face the parliamentary committee probing the matter to give his side of the story. Last week, Leakey blamed the deaths of the rhino on lack of informed decisions by a functional board, blaming Balala for approving the translocation of the rhinos, which the board he chaired claims had declined for 3 years. CS Balala has now appointed a new KWS Board of Trustees in a Gazette notice dated 31st July. The members will serve for 3 years with effect from July 30th.
As the blame game over who should be held accountable for the deaths of the 11 black rhinos at the Tsavo East National Park escalates, questions have arisen over if there are clear policies to guide the moving of animals from one park to the other. Zainab Ismail, NTV.
The fight within ODM continues to escalate, with 16 Coast MPs defending 2 of their own, Malindi MP Aisha Jumwa and Msambweni MP Suleiman Dori, who are facing disciplinary actions from their party ODM for their closeness to Deputy President William Ruto. The 2 received show cause letters which they are supposed to respond to by tomorrow on why they should not be deemed to have left the party that sponsored them to Parliament. Kennedy Murithi reports.
Their dalliance with Deputy President William Ruto has now landed them in trouble officially, with show cause letters sent to them requiring their explanation on acts deemed to point to a possibility that they have left ODM, the party that sponsored them to Parliament. In the letters dated 24th July and signed by National Assembly Minority Leader John Mbadi, the 2, Msambweni MP Suleiman Dori and Malindi MP Aisha Jumwa, are accused of propagating ideologies of DP Ruto and his 2022 ambitions other than their party leader Raila Odinga's ideologies. Dori, as captured in the letter, is quoted as having said the coastal people have been betrayed by Raila Odinga and ODM and should look elsewhere to realize some development. His father quoted as having said, I regret campaigning for Raila Odinga and NASA. On her part, Jumwa is quoted as having said, people should not attack me, they should attack Raila Odinga, who forgot all the efforts that the opposition had in store for Kenya and supported the Jubilee administration.
Kama mimi siwezi kupeana mkono kule juu, lakini hapa chini kuna hasla mwenzangu nami ninamkumbatia. Mabaya hayo.
The 16 MPs from the Coast region say they stand in solidarity with the 2 MPs, accusing ODM of being dictatorial.
Hatuwezi kukubali kamwe kama viongozi wa pwani kuwaacha hawa wenzetu wanyanyaswe na chama chao.
We've seen our leaders, they have been all over the place, shaking hands with whoever they want to shake hands with. So we also have a right to do the same as what they've been doing.
Tunamheshimu Mheshimiwa Raila sana. Lakini isiwe ni sababu ya kuwa sisi tuwe tunatishiwa ili ndio tulazimishwe kukaa pale pamoja. Isitoshe, sisi basi tunasema hizo barua zikuwa withdrawn.
Jumua's position as a commissioner in the Parliamentary Service Commission is also being targeted as it is courtesy of ODM. And ODM says that this is just but the first shot, as many within the party are targeted if they do not change their ways. Kennedy Mureithi, NTV in Nairobi County.
The death toll from the post-poll violence in Zimbabwe currently stands at 5 after soldiers in the country's capital, Harare, opened fire on opposition supporters who had gone on the rampage. Violence erupted after the opposition accused the ruling ZANU-PF party of rigging the Monday's presidential and parliamentary elections. NTV's Vincent Odwar compiled the following report.
Violence erupted in Zimbabwe's capital Harare as the protest escalated on Wednesday after the opposition Movement for Democratic Change Alliance alleged that the ruling ZANU-PF party had rigged Monday's presidential and parliamentary vote. Opposition supporters burnt tires, blocking some streets and engaging in running battles with the police, who fired water cannon and tear gas to disperse the protesters. Soldiers were deployed in the streets, jumping out of several armored personnel carriers to quell the violence. Soldiers were seen beating up protesters in central Harare. 5 people have been reported dead in the ongoing protests. Parliamentary results show the ruling ZANU-PF party heading for a big majority. The presidential result is yet to be declared. Zimbabwe's Electoral Commission has said it would start announcing results from Thursday this week. Zimbabwe's President Emerson Mnangagwa has called for calm, while the leader of the opposition Movement for Democratic Change, Nelson Chamisa, has said on Twitter that he had won the popular vote.
Participating in a peaceful demonstration.
Monday's election was the first election since Robert Mugabe was ousted from power.
Still on that story, I'm reading a tweet here by Nelson Chamisa, who's the presidential candidate for NDC, who says, "Thank you, Zimbabwe. I'm humbled by the support you've given to me as a presidential candidate. We have won the popular vote. You voted for total change in this past election. We have won this one together. No amount of results manipulation will alter your will." This is just 5 hours ago, and this is happening before Mondays. Interesting times in Zimbabwe. We'll just keep an eye on what's happening there.
We certainly hope that calm will be restored. So we take a short break now, but I'll be back with the business news. Labor Relations Court in Nakuru has issued an injunction stopping Unilever Tea Kenya Limited from carrying out a retrenchment exercise allegedly targeting over 11,000 workers at the company in Kericho. Kevin Mutai with the details.
In a letter addressed to unionized employees at the Unilever Tea Company in Kericho, all non-management workers were invited to take a voluntary retirement, a move that, according to the company, comes as a result of business transformation. In the letter, the employees were given 7 days to take up the offer. The Kenya Plantations and Agricultural Workers Union has slammed the company for dismissing the workers, alleging that Unilever has been victimizing employees, sending them on early retirement. The union went to court to seek redress over the matter, and an injunction has been granted stopping Unilever from implementing the program until the matter is heard.
We cannot stand by and watch multinational tea companies taking away workers' gains, holding workers at ransom, exploiting workers for the past 4 years since 2014.
Wabunge wetu wakiongozwa na akina Duale wanafikiria tu juu ya pesa. Juzi nimeona wanataka kuchiongeza pesa zaidi. Je, wale wafanyakazi wanaofanya katika sekta ya agriculture watapata nini?
In its letter to Unilever's Human Resource Department, Kepau urged the multinational tea company to suspend the exercise until an inter-parties hearing is conducted at the Employment and Labor Relations Court. Kepau claims that the introduction of tea plucking machines is the cause of all these predicaments facing employees in the tea growing regions.
They must consider paying our employees, each employee, a minimum monthly wage of 12,750 shillings times 12 months.
The union says Unilever's actions will leave 11,000 people jobless, thereby seriously hurting the economy of Kericho County. The company has a total of 16,000 workers and says the restructuring is necessary as it adopts more mechanization, but will be offering the 11,000 workers who will be affected gratuity as per the CBA. A severance pay of 23 days for each year of service, notice pay as per the CBA, leave days, and a one-way bus fare. Following the developments in court, Unilever says it will hold off on the program until further notice. Kevin Mutai, NTV.
The conversation on the promotion of exports keeps coming back to one factor: assistive policies. What are some of the policies that the government should put in place to enhance the volume of exports? Alex Mwangi spoke to some exhibitors at the Kenyatta International Convention Center on the third day of the Kenya Trade Week, and this is what they had to say.
It has been said time and time again that small and medium enterprises account for the bulk of Kenya's employment. Many of these SMEs, however, face a big challenge in exporting their products. Now, for Kenya to increase the value of her exports from the 594 billion shillings achieved last year to the 1.8 trillion shillings targeted in 2022, the government will need to institute some policies.
The cost of packaging is usually high because if you're dealing with exports, packaging has to be above par. The shipping costs are also very, very high.
Go around our police stations. This is where we have junkyards for all the old vehicles for the last 30 years that have been parked there and nobody goes for them. I wish there was a way that the government would try to promote a way of acquiring very basic recycling processes or plants which can be bought cheaply enough.
What would you say about the Made in Kenya initiative? What can be done in order to make it more effective?
Well, what can be done is that I think the taxes are really high, so we try to put them down. At least if the government can please put the taxes a bit down, it makes it much easier for us because some of the raw materials are really expensive. So by the time you get it, the product ends up being expensive and people don't want to buy it because they find it's too expensive.
A kind of a seat that we have fabricated from materials that are usually thrown out by bicycle fundis. These are materials that you would acquire almost even for free from these people. Or even if it were at a price, it would be like a giveaway.
A lot has been said at the Kenya Trade Week on how to address the bottlenecks facing traders and manufacturers, especially with respect to exports. By the end of the week, Kenya hopes to have come up with a clear plan of how to increase her exports. But the effort and expense to host the forum will come to naught if recommendations will not be implemented in the near future. Alex Mwangi, NTV.
Farmers are always looking for ways to expand their businesses and maximize profits. And one of those ways is value addition. In this story, Martin Maura tells you about a farmer in Murang'a who is turning pumpkins into flour.
For
the past 3 years, Irongo has been farming pumpkins, a venture which has proven to be lucrative for him. On his quarter-acre piece of land, he planted the seeds, and the results were impressive as he got a bountiful harvest and made good cash. The high returns gave him the motivation to carry on with the farming. Now, he's taking his farming a notch higher by doing value addition of the pumpkins with intent to fetch more money.
Tumeanza hivi karibuni na bado tutaendelea, na juu hii tunaona itavuma zaidi Kenya mzima, na watu wanahitaji hii uga sana, hata haiwezi ikatosha. Wale watu wote wanahitaji hii uga ya kukura na pia kukunywa na uji, kukura na chapati, keki, madasi, hata ile mafactory wanapikaga hii mikate.
Irungu, who is from Kigetoine, one of the driest areas in Kiharu constituency, said they conducted research on how to do value addition on pumpkins, and they settled for milling flour from pumpkins. And with the knowledge, they started Malenge Town Products Limited and got a fundi who made them solar power dryers. But in the rainy season, they incurred losses due to insufficient sunshine. This made them develop a dryer that uses firewood, which he uses throughout the season.
Inakausha marenge roribi kwa siku moja. Sasa hii kikatakata hiyo marenge, tunakuja tunawekelea kwa hizi mabakras, kwa hizi mashelves. Tukiwekelea huku juu, tunahakishia moto pale nje ya kuni. Na hiyo marenge inakauka kwa siku moja. Na ikikauka kwa siku moja, sasa tunaitoa hapa, tunapeleka kwa machini ya kusiaga.
At the moment, the company has temporarily halted production as it is facing a shortage of pumpkins, even though the demand for the flour is rising day by day.
Tunajaribu kuelimisha wakulima wapande hii marenge kwa wingi, ndio na sisi tuwanunulie. Kilo moja tunanunua na shilingi 50. Ile marenge kubwa kabisa inafikisha kilo 20, na hiyo tunanunua na shilingi 1000.
To sustain the production, Irungu is wooing farmers from Murang'a and the neighboring counties to plant more pumpkins as there is a ready market.
Ile mpango tunayo ni ya kusupply uga Kenya mzima mpaka nchi za nje, na hiyo uga itaajiri watu wengi sana Kenya mzima.
Martin Mora, NTV, Murang'a County.
We end the business news on that Malenge note, but stay tuned because we have many more stories coming up.
The government has issued a one-week order for the eviction of criminal elements living in Kamalong Forest at the border points of Elgeyo Marakwet and West Pokot counties.
The conflict between the Pokot and Marakwet communities has escalated in recent months, with the bone of contention being the scramble for livestock, water and pasture. Lois Wangoi reports.
A meeting to seek the way forward following escalated tension between these neighboring communities. The Pokot-Marakwet conflict has seen 4 persons dead in a span of 1 month. Such meetings are usual during fights between these two neighboring communities.
Serikali iko na machinery ya kutosha. Hata kama ni kuleta KDF, wacha wakuje waende house to house wakitafuta hiyo ng'ombe. Hakuna haja tuseme hawa wananchi watarudisha.
Both the Pokot and the Marakwets accuse each other of cattle rustling, during which, for the life of livestock, men here shoot to kill. The Pokot representative went first on how to tame the killings.
Kitu ya kwanza, Kamalokon si mbaya, punduki ni mbaya. Utusaidie kutoa punduki kwa mkono wa raia.
The Marakwet community seeks to compel the government to flush out from the forests attackers who engage in cattle rustling and banditry and who use the forests as their hideouts.
Kama hii forest haitakuwa flush out, then sisi tutatoka tu, tutakuwa wakimbizi nchi nyingine.
County commissioners from both communities say those engaging in cattle rustling and banditry are using the Ambabut forest as a hideout.
Kama tutatoa hawa watu, nafikiri tutakuwa tunakuja hapa tukiongea kila siku.
Currently, most villages here along the border have become deserted, with hundreds of residents displaced by the growing conflict. Lois Wangoi, NTV, at the Pokot-Marakwet border.
Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko has suspended the County Health Executive Hitam Majevda and County Director of Health Thomas Ogaro for what the county chief termed as laxity at work.
Among concerns the Governor Sonko raised was hidden charges mothers incurred during maternity and mismanagement of a number of Nairobi health facilities that he accused the two of not addressing. Eunice Omolo reports.
Good morning.
What seemed to be the beginning of a good partnership with Japanese government turned out to be a pause in Hitma Majivda's tenure as Nairobi Health CEC. Governor Mike Sonko was not impressed by the goings-on in the health sector in Nairobi County, and for that, he suspended the county CEC Health and the county health director for 14 days.
Wewe waziri na wewe director, kuanzia leo kwa hizo siku 14 nimewasuspend, amuko kazini.
Governor Sonko made the pronouncement during the official opening of Kangemi TB Laboratory at Kangemi Health Center.
Na nawapatia siku 14 mu-explain kwa nini hakuna dawa kwa hospitali za Nairobi.
Veska Kagongo is the executive in charge of devolution, public services and administration, has been appointed in acting capacity to manage the health docket.
Mama anazaa bure. Lakini wacha mimi nikubali niseme shida iko kwa serikali yangu ya county. Mimi nimehuzunishwa sababu nimeuliza mama swali. Umelipa kuzaa? Ananiambia sijalipa. Shida ni nini? Mama anatolea karatasi mali ananyonyesha kwa matiti. Ameniambia hii jik. Tumeambiwa tununue jik. Alafu watu wanasema hapana, hiyo ni shida ya ofisi. Hiyo si shida ya ofisi.
While touring the maternity of the health facility, Sonko expressed his disappointment with how mothers were forced to pay for commodities at the hospital after child delivery. The governor has announced an overhaul of the entire procurement team after finding out that some medical facilities were lacking basic commodities and drugs. Nairobi County passed a health budget of 6.1 billion Kenya shillings. The Kangemi facility is equipped with modern equipment, the product of a joint partnership of Nairobi County and the Japanese government aimed at boosting early detection and treatment of the disease. Eunice Omolo, NTV, Nairobi.
Well, NTV Tonight takes another short break.
But on the other side of the break, Brian Otwal brings us the sports news.
Welcome to NTV Sport. My name is Brian Otwal. Despite the travel challenges in Asaba, Nigeria for the 21st African Athletics Championships, Team Kenya finally arrived at the Stephen Keshi Stadium and suffered more setback, losing in the men's 10,000 meters final as Ethiopia and Uganda made the podium places. Kenya, which is hoping to improve its last edition's medal tally of 8 gold, 8 silver and 8 bronze medals in the 5-day competition, will take part in the finals of the men and women's 400 meters, 800 meters and 1500 meters heats. The travel chaos from Lagos to Asaba for the Africa Athletics Championship had forced organizers to cancel the morning session, which had policeman Gilbert Koech representing Kenya in the decathlon event. And after Kenya made its way to Asaba, it was upset in the men's 10,000 meters. Ethiopia's Jamel Yumer won the first gold medal in a time of 29 minutes 8.01 seconds, with compatriot Andumalak Belihu in second and Uganda's Timothy Toroitich taking bronze. While apologizing for the travel mess, the chairman of the local organizing committee, Solomon Ogba, blamed countries for failing to confirm in good time their arrival schedules. Back home, the Ministry of Sports have been in contact with the team and have put in plans to ensure smooth exit of the team after the completion of the 5-day championship.
This was a problem that was completely beyond our control, and therefore it's not that Kenya hasn't done enough preparation. We normally take due diligence on matters of this kind, but these are things that are beyond our control.
From the arrangements that were in place, not only with us but with everybody else, there was no need for us to have a separate arrangement for Team Kenya. So as far as we are concerned, everything was done right. There was no need for any alternative or even backup plan.
Many elite athletes will approach with zeal the Africa Championships, as it also serves as trials for the Continental Cup in Ostrava, Czech Republic in September. Thursday will see Kenya seek more medals in the men and women's 400 meters final, 800 meters finals and 1500 meters heats before concluding with the women's 5000 meters. Moving on, Gor Mahia extended their lead at the top of the Kenyan Premier League table with a 3-0 win over Kariobangi Sharks at the Moi Stadium in Kisumu. Kogalo got their opener in the 25th minute through an own goal from Sharks defender Geoffrey Shiveka after he headed the ball into his own net. Gor will finally score in the second half through Kevin Omondi in the 77th minute and Lawrence Juma in the 85th minute. The win sees Kogalo extend their lead at the top with 55 points, 15 points ahead of second place Sofapaka, having played 3 games less, while Kariobangi Sharks remain 7th with 34 points. And Kenya's Sevens forward William Baka and Poland-based Joshua Chisanga are the latest players to join the Kenya 15 side Simbas as they prepare for 2 crucial Africa Gold Cup games against Tunisia and Namibia this month. The two were part of the 30-plus players that attended a high-altitude training camp in Nanyuki, that is last week. It is the Simbas' second visit for a similar orientation, following on the first back in mid-May prior to a first-leg Elgon Cup tie with Uganda. Kenya has so far posted 3 straight wins in the qualifiers, with wins over Morocco, Zimbabwe and Uganda. The Simbas currently lie second in the standings with 12 points, 3 off leaders Namibia. Parliament has urged the national government to spearhead the construction of a national rugby stadium through Sports Kenya. The House also brought up the importance of each region around the country having a center of sporting excellence. Nominated MP Gideon Keter was at the debate and spoke to NTV's Kennedy Muredi.
The saddest part is when Fiji, when England, when New Zealand, when South Africa, when they want to come to Kenya and participate together or play maybe friendly matches, or they want to assign like a league to come to Kenya, they don't have a stadium. And this is a reality we as a country, we as leaders need to wake up to and ensure that going forward we need to tap this potential, because this is one way we are going to help our youth get jobs, eradicate poverty.
And KCB shut out Kibera Black Stars 2-0 in the National Super League on Wednesday, with Simon Abuko and Dennis Nganga scoring the goals for KCB to make it 16 points in the last 6 matches. In selected results, Coast side Steamer drew 1-1 with Modern Coast Rangers in their Coast Derby, with Mohamed Kasim putting Steamer ahead in the 63rd minute before Mohamed Nzai equalized for Rangers 3 minutes later. Western Steamer beat St. Joseph 2-1. Nairobi City Stars thrashed Hispania 4-0 with Eric Simiyu, Peter Mwangi, Sande Katumba and Abdara Mango getting the goals in the rout. Meanwhile, Bidco United blanked Nakuru All Stars 2-0.
Kijana Nganga alafu na ile kona ambayo ilitokea basi kijana Abuko akaupiga ule mpira na kufanya.
Everton have signed defender Lucas Digne from Spanish champions Barcelona on a 5-year contract.
NTV Tonight. My name is Burrows.
And my name is Dennis Okari. Our sign language interpreter was Agundora.
Enjoy the rest of your viewing.
This is NTV.
All bets on sports. One is fair. Huge winnings. One is fair. High odds. One is fair. Fast pay. One is fair. One is fair.
Bookmaker Company. Take notes and write down a summary of the important ideas as you read through your study material. Make sure that you understand the material well. Don't just read through the material and try to memorize everything.
Barton College offers quality, relevant and affordable education to all.